The desert does not give up its dead easily. Wind slides over the West Mesa like a blade, carving silence into the dunes, erasing footprints, carrying the heat upward into a sky too bright to look at. But on one winter afternoon in February of 2009, the silence broke. A woman walking her dog felt the leash tighten. The dog was digging, frantic, insistent at something pale emerging from the ground. She stepped closer, then froze. It wasn't stone. It wasn't wood. It wasn't even an animal. It was a human femur, long, sun-bleached, pushing its way out of the desert as though the earth itself was tired of holding its secret. Her breath caught, because bones don't rise alone. Behind her, the wind shifted, carrying the faint rattle of loose sand slipping down a buried slope. The kind of sound that means the ground beneath your feet has been disrupted more than once. And in that moment, she understood. This wasn't a discovery. This was an unveiling. The desert had finally begun to speak. Welcome to Tales of the Twisted, the Strange, the Weird, the Bizarre. Today, we descend into a crime scene the size of a neighborhood, a burial ground uncovered by chance, in a mystery that spans sex trafficking rings, vanished women, satellite images, and a killer who seemed to watch from the shadows as investigators dug. This is the story of the West Mesa Bone Collector. Between 2001 and 2005, something evil stalked the women of Albuquerque. 11 women and one unborn child vanished from city streets, primarily from the East Central Corridor. They faced addiction, unstable housing, sex work, and the dangerous men who prowled the edges of their world. And someone was watching them. Someone who knew where they walked, where they slept, when no one would come looking quickly enough. Throughout these years, women disappeared one after another, sometimes months apart, sometimes only weeks. No one connected the vanishings. Not yet. On the West Mesa, a stretch of scrubland within Albuquerque city limits, the earth was disturbed again and again. Tire tracks, shallow pits, patches of loose soil. Satellite imagery from 2003 to 2005 would later reveal exactly that. Visible signs of digging and vehicle patterns precisely where the bodies were eventually found. The burial pattern was orderly, similar deaths, similar spacing, a consistent MO, as if one person or one group returned repeatedly, confident this land would stay hidden forever. But nothing in Albuquerque stays buried forever, not even in the desert. By 2006, construction companies began developing the West Mesa area for new housing. Gravel, machinery, retaining walls. The killer's burial ground, once isolated, was suddenly being swallowed by the city. So the killer stopped. The final burial took place in late 2005, right before development encroached. If construction had begun 1 year earlier, the bodies may have been discovered long before the killer intended. If it had begun 1 year later, they might never have been found at all. But fate has its own schedule. When the housing market collapsed in 2008, development on the west side abruptly stopped. Roads were laid, but homes were never built. The land was left open, half prepared, half wild. Neighbors began complaining about flooding, water collecting where natural arroyos had been buried beneath construction soil. Contractors built a stormwater retention pond to resolve the issue, and that pond, by pure accident, was dug directly over the burial ground. The erosion from those changes exposed bones to the surface, and on February 2nd, 2009, the desert finally gave up its first victim. The remains belonged to 11 women and one unborn child, all buried between May 2003 and September of 2004. Their ages ranged from 15 to 32. They were Monica Diana Candelaria, 22, Victoria Ann Chavez, 26, Selania Edwards, 15, and she was the only victim from out of state, Doreen Marquez, 24, Veronica Romero, 28, Jamie Barella, 15, Evelyn Salazar, 27, Virginia Cloven, 24, Julie Cindy Nieto, 24, Cinnamon Elks, 32, Michelle Gina Valdez, 22, who, by the way, was also 4 months pregnant. Michelle's unborn baby was also found, making the total count 12. All but Selania were local Albuquerque women. All had vanished from the same vulnerable communities. All disappeared within a tight 17-month window. Now, years before the bodies were found, Albuquerque PD Detective Ida Lopez had been quietly compiling a troubling list. Women that were involved in sex work, women using Central Avenue, women with addiction, and women disappearing without a trace. Many on her list later turned up on the Mesa, but 9 women from her list never did. They remain missing to this day, which leaves investigators with an unnerving possibility. West Mesa has more victims still buried. The desert may not be done speaking. With the investigation, excavation begins. As police cordon off the area, they faced one of the largest crime scenes in New Mexico's history. Over 100 acres of potential burial space, thousands of bone fragments, multiple burial clusters. The desert had churned everything together. Bones had been scattered by erosion, sandstorms, and backfill from failed development. The forensic challenge was enormous. Anthropologists, medical examiners, and archaeologists worked for months identifying victims piece by piece. This was not sloppy work by the killer. It was deliberate, repeated, and calculated. In December of 2010, Albuquerque police revealed 7 photographs of unidentified women, images they believed were connected to the case. Several women appeared unconscious, drugged, or posed. The photos came from an undisclosed source. Police refused to say how they got them. 2 women were later identified as alive, but neither has been located for questioning. Another was found to have died of natural causes years earlier. The remaining identities remain unknown. Were these women targets, victims, survivors, or connected to the killer? The police never said. In 2018, bones were found again near the site, but these turned out to be ancient, unrelated. Still, the discovery shook the community. Everybody wondered, would the next bones belong to another woman from Ida Lopez's list? Theories and suspects. Though no one was formally charged, several men have been linked loosely, quietly, and controversially. The leading suspect, Lorenzo Montoya. Montoya lived less than 3 miles from the burial site. He was a violent offender with a known history of attacking sex workers, threatening to kill women. He told acquaintances he would bury her in lime. Trails from his trailer park led toward the West Mesa area. Coworkers said he once bragged about killing women and burying them on the Mesa. Then came December of 2006. Montoya murdered 19-year-old Sharika Hill in his trailer. As he attempted to load her into his truck, her boyfriend shot Lorenzo dead. Police said the killing was too brutal to be his first, and notably, after his death, the West Mesa burials stopped. Inside his home, detectives found a disturbing recording. Montoya having sex with a woman who was possibly dead, followed by sounds of duct tape, garbage bags, and preparation consistent with body disposal. Screenshots were released publicly. The woman on the video was never identified. So the question is this the bone collector? Maybe, but Albuquerque PD says the evidence is circumstantial. Another theory is human trafficking rings. An anonymous Albuquerque PD plus FBI tip linked the murders to a suspect from El Salvador, part of a trafficking operation spanning Texas, New Mexico, Nevada, and Colorado. The ring allegedly targeted sex workers during the New Mexico State Fair, regional events, and high traffic seasons. Women were recruited, drugged, transported, or removed from circuits. Some never returned. Were the West Mesa victims discarded by traffickers? Investigators won't say publicly, but the theory hasn't been ruled out. Another theory is Fred Reynolds, who is a pimp. He's known for photographing sex workers. He had images of missing women, including some from Ida Lopez's list. He died in January of 2009, just weeks before the first bones were discovered. Police never considered him a full suspect, but his connection to the victims lingers. Ron Irwin, a photographer from Joplin, Missouri, he visited the Albuquerque State Fair yearly, took tens of thousands of photographs of women. In 2010, police seized his photo archive. He was later cleared, but the connection remains mysterious. Why did he have so many photos? Were any victims among them? Police never revealed. Another suspect is Joseph Blia, a middle school rapist, a deeply disturbing figure. He was active in the 1980s. Blia broke into homes to assault middle school girls. His DNA reconnected him to old rape kits in 2010. Investigators found women's underwear not belonging to his family, jewelry not belonging to his family, a tree tag at the burial site linked to a nursery Blia frequented. His DNA on a sex worker's clothing found dead on Central Avenue. A cellmate claimed Blia admitted to hiring girls, referring to the victims as trashy. He was convicted in a rape case, but never charged in the Mesa murders. Still, his name sits high on Albuquerque PD's list. There's also the El Salvador suspect who's unnamed. It's a quiet but persistent rumor. An anonymous tip described a man tied to an international trafficking ring, a man who moved women through New Mexico regularly. The FBI looked into it, and whatever they found, they've never said. This theory remains one of the most chilling because it implies a network, not a lone killer. There is a legacy to all of this. On June 27th, 2020, officials opened Women's Memorial Park on the burial site. It stands where the 11 women and Michelle's unborn baby were found. The park acknowledges what was ignored for too long. These women were more than their struggles, more than their addictions, and more than their circumstances. They were human, loved, missed, and most of all, deserving of justice. But through all of this, the West Mesa Bone Collector still remains unidentified. Theories abound: serial killer, trafficking organization, a partnership between violent offenders, a lone predator who died before being caught, a killer who is still alive, silent, careful, and comfortable, or a man who moved on to new hunting grounds. But the truth remains beneath the sand. Albuquerque PD still receives tips, families still hold vigils, and the desert still shifts, exposing new clues or even covering old ones. 9 women from Ida Lopez's list remain missing. The Mesa may hide more victims, killer or killers may never be known. Thank you for listening to Tales of the Twisted, the strange, the weird, the bizarre. If this story unsettled you, follow the show, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves true crime that refuses to let go. And join us next time when we open another door the world tried to close. Until then, keep your lights low and stay twisted.